Last week's episode of Star Trek Discovery was teased and previewed to be one to look forward to, one that was supposed to be really exciting, utilizing this mysterious ISS Enterprise coming out of a portal, when in reality, the showrunners made zero effort to tie that ISS Enterprise into any existing lore with the Mirror Universe. We only got a measly reference to Spock being Burnham's brother, and then this forced reference to Saru being emancipated and kind of helping the ship escape. Only real thing that was truly entertaining for me was this exploration of the Breen. Unfortunately, the fan base seems to be really divided between people who think it's slightly entertaining and fun to explore, or that this should never be explored and the whole reason the Breen exists is to have mystery. Today's episode made me mad. I'm just gonna go out and say it again. This is another episode that made me mad. It really pisses me off that I'm getting this mad from new Star Trek. There's already way too much negativity surrounding new Star Trek, but I'm just coming to the conclusion that Michelle Paradise is kind of an op. Like, she's really bad at creating a show, writing for a show, and just delivering a final product. She says that today's episode, episode 6, titled Whistlespeak, was a classic TOS adventure. Michelle, have you ever watched Star Trek the original series? Because I've seen it at least 6 times in its entirety, and I've never seen a soap opera yap fest like the one I have seen today. Really makes me angry because it is just a complete carbon copy of an already existing episode from Voyager called Sacred Ground, where Janeway is forced to test her resolve as a woman of science, as somebody who's completely logical, purely agnostic, and is really abrasive to faith and religion. She's forced to go through multiple trials on this random alien planet in order to save Kes, one of her crew members, alive. Exact same thing, except there was only one silly trial. Am I really to believe that these insane people, once per year or so, they get the idea that they're going to do a foot race where they put cinnamon in their mouths, they do the cinnamon spice Muad'Dib Paul Atreides challenge, and they go for a jog, and if they manage to do this jog without taking any water, like the hot chip challenge by Pocky, that they get the beautiful privilege of sacrificing themselves in this Aztecian sacrifice so that they'll get rainwater. My biggest gripe is that, like, there's just one challenge. Like, the only thing that keeps these young aspirants between life and death is just a race through the woods. At least in that Voyager episode written in the 90s, they could come up with, like, 2 to 3 clever little challenges or rituals for Janeway to do to keep it interesting, but the showrunners of Discovery instead thought it was just a better idea to have Culber and all these other characters yap. It makes me want to be so negative. Let me look at my notes here and see what I even put down. Povich having that piece of paper from the 21st century kind of gives away from the fact that this dude, if he's not just leading Section 31 at this point, that he's got to be a participant or the head of some Starfleet temporal department. Retinal tricorders are crazy. I thought that that was pretty cool. Contact lens that streams the input from your tricorder that you keep in your purse or up your bum, and you could see it as this interface. I thought that was pretty neat. Whereas the writing in the season is complete trash, I think that the use of three-dimensional matter and 32nd century technology is really strong and fun. Isn't it crazy that the clue is literally just distilled water, and that this freak of a Denobulan scientist wanted the future treasure hunt people to just look up his job history and find some random obscure planet that he's worked on that could possibly house distilled water, because Denobula doesn't have water that clean. Something along the lines in that convoluted, non-entertaining explanation. I didn't get to see a single Denobulan in this episode, and I love Denobulan. I was completely cucked from getting to go to Denobula. They were like, no, we're actually going to go to this copy and paste species. That's another thing. They really did spend some time trying to give this species, of all the species in Discovery, like some lore and some culture, some things to learn about them, which is just a complete waste of time, because in episodes like this species isn't one of those aliens of the week that we're meant to learn a lot about. Like, we could come back and meet these primitive people again in a future episode. No, no, no. People like this are meant to create a narrative around the Prime Directive. Remember in TNG, the Wayward episode, I think it's called, with Worf's brother, and a also similar society, because they were living on a planet that was surrounded by storms as well that sought to crush them. The entertaining thing about that society was not their facial ridges or even the fact that they wrote their histories down on stone tablets. It was the narrative that surrounded them, with Picard wanting to send them the slaughter for the Prime Directive. In today's episode, Michael's decision to break the Prime Directive was completely glossed over. Like, Raynor was like, hey, you know you're breaking the Prime Directive, you might have to talk about this later with somebody, and I really doubt that anybody's even going to come to Michael later, and there's going to be consequences for this. There was no moral or ethical qualms over her breaking the Prime Directive, which is one of the most entertaining facets and one of the easiest things to create a narrative around. Couldn't get any more easier than that. What else do I have in my notes? The brain pattern wave hollow confused me a little, but I thought it was also kind of cool. I assume it probes your brain activity and pulls memories and actually creates a realistic simulation of a loved one or a family member for therapy reasons. Although I do have to say that this doesn't seem like good therapy. This could be easily abused and could lead somebody to have an unhealthy way to deal with grief or loss. Like, imagine if you just kind of go nuts and you can't accept the fact that you've lost a loved one, so you continue to talk to their hollow until the day you die. I could see this becoming unhealthy really quickly. Like, this is a 1970s pizza parlor. Book is playing asteroids in the 32nd century. At the end of the episode, it's kind of funny how we have this 32nd century cracked out starship with all its technology. You guys even admit that you had to go to a separate tower in the Badlands in order to get the clue. Why did they leave the planet without repairing the towers? That seems like bullying to me. You've already broken the Prime Directive. You've already went Who Watches the Watchers on it and like explained everything. Oh, we're people from another world and there are aliens. But you didn't want to go and repair the other 4 towers and alleviate these people from their suffering and having to do their Aztec rituals. A little bit dickish, Michael Burnham. I feel like you could have at least done that much for them. Instead, all they got was like the Holes ending, where they got a little bit of rain and happiness. This episode is supposed to address the idea of spiritual people embracing new ideas while still having a strong faith, while a logical and more agnostic person like Culber embraces the mysteries of not knowing the correct way to feel or think at all times. This in itself is actually a pretty good concept and one that I'm willing to explore, but again, the execution is just terrible. I do not like the showrunners or producers of a handful of episodes in this season. It's really whack. It should be a strong finish, not kind of a boring, lackluster one. I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna give it a 1. This is so below par, and the thing that makes me so angry about it to the point where I actually, like, am getting physically angry and I want to scream, is how negative episodes like these in this final season make me seem. This is the second time in a row where I've had to sit here and just kind of hate on this and bash on it. The last thing I want to do is be like those crusty old white men who lack critical thinking skills and just bash everything, and all they can say is that it's woke and that they don't want to watch it, when really they're just insecure dummies. I don't want to be like those people. I would really just like a simple, entertaining Star Trek story. It's not that hard to produce, and it is just a little bit embarrassing that these people who are given millions of dollars to create a production come up with something like this. It is just not worth my time. I'm a little bit frustrated because I would like to hold up the standard for myself to review every episode, but I didn't want to review today's episode. Every fiber of my being wanted me to just shut this shit off and just tune in next week. That's how I feel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Sorry for being negative. Y'all have a good one. Live long and prosper. Michelle, are you actually kidding me? Like, what was that? Who's having fun watching that, Michelle? Who? Nope, like, we're gonna forget about that episode and never watch it again.